You got snow on your face. So some people have been asking for some more details about how I'm doing this on the van. So this is the door for the toilet, and basically all my doors are going to be like this. What I did is 45-degree miter joints, and I did that because then it just makes it easy to rabbet a little piece out of the side here with the router so that a piece of 1/4-inch plywood will go in there. So I've got a 1/2-inch reveal with a 1/4-inch plywood behind it, but 3/4-inch poplar so these are just standard 1x4 poplar that I'm using. And then I clamp them, nail them, and screw them together with trim screws. I've got 2.5-inch trim screws in here that's holding it all together. And I glued everything on, glued it together, let it sit overnight. Now I'm sanding it and filling all the holes and things, and then I'll paint it.
Hi, we're Matt and Kristina. We live in an off-grid, eclectic hobbit house nestled into the mountains of Colorado. After waiting for our new Ford Transit Trail Edition van for over 8 months, we've decided to throw in the towel and buy a new 2022 four-wheel drive Mercedes Sprinter. After building out Clarity One and traveling for 3 years, we've missed van life, and we're excited to finish building out our new home on wheels and getting back on the road.
The way I've elected to do these drawers is to try to keep them as light as possible. I've made them out of 1/2-inch plywood for the sides with a 1/4-inch bottom. And they're not going to have that much weight in them, so that should be plenty strong. They're stapled and glued. With the bottom of the drawer, I elected to put the drawer bottom directly on to the bottom of the sides, like this. Just nailed and glued. And I did that because with a 1/2-inch piece rabbiting in a slot in the inside of the drawer and putting that bottom in those slots is typically how I would do a drawer, but it takes up space and gives us less depth in the drawer. So I'm electing to do it this way, and the way I will hold these bottoms on there in addition to the staples and glue is I'm going to put some screws in the bottom of that. So that should hold everything together on washboard roads and things. For what we're doing, I think that'll work great. And then on the front of the drawer fronts, I elected to make the side of the drawer go full length with the inside of the front and back of the drawer going inside so that I can nail through the sides and nail and glue that. That'll make that really strong. And then if I have a drawer front I want to add to that, I can just screw right through there into the drawer front. Because of the war in Ukraine, we have not been able to get Baltic birch for a number of months now. And so I've had to just use regular birch plywood on these. And the end grain is not so great. It's not nearly as nice as it would be if I was using Baltic birch. But it is what it is. So I'll fill the imperfections with some spackle and putty. And I'll caulk around the corners so it looks nice and clean. And give it some paint. So I'm getting ready to mount this drawer that's going to go in this cabinet above the toilet. And so I need to make sure I know what the height I have to work with here is, which I've done this about 10 times now. But I've got 18.5 inches from the bottom of the toilet to the top of the toilet, a little bit less than that. So I measured up from the base here where the toilet is going to sit up 19 inches, gave myself an extra ½ an inch and made a mark. And then I measured up from the top of these drawer slides up to that mark, which is 16 3/4 inches. And I'm just going to make a couple of pieces of wood that are 16 3/4 inches tall so that I can just set my drawer slide in there and screw it on. And in fact, I think I might just make it a little smaller. I still have 3.5 inches here, which is all the room I need for my drawer. Okay, so I thought we'd show you our toilet. We originally had designed this whole system for the Airhead composting toilet. It wasn't until I began to mount the Airhead to this drawer that I realized the design of that Airhead had some major flaws in it that would not work in our situation. I built the box the same way we build it in Clarity, except made it a little bit smaller because this Airhead is much smaller than the Nature's Head composting toilet. I didn't realize that Airhead wasn't going to work until I actually started to mount it inside this drawer. And then I quickly realized that although the dimensions are smaller than the Nature's Head that we used, it had some issues that made it not work in this type of a situation. The main issue was, in order to pull out the pee bucket, which in the Nature's Head we were able to just lift it out, in this one you have to pull it out from the bottom and slide it out at least 6 inches with your hand in there in order to get the pee bucket out from underneath the toilet so that you can lift it out. So even though it looks compact and seems like a really good idea, it definitely didn't work in our situation. The only way it would work is if you just put a flat drawer bottom with bottom drawer mount slides so that you can pull that thing all the way out and not have anything in the way. But that wasn't what we had. In our situation, we ended up just using our C-head toilet. I'll show you how that goes in a minute. But before I show you that, I want to show you our charging drawer that is in this cabinet as well. Our charging cabinet opens up here, and we've got USB ports as well as charging ports tied into 110 volts, which is right underneath. I just wired in a receptacle out there so that I could plug this power strip into it. What I have is a drawer that this toilet mounts in. But I did run into another problem with this drawer situation that I hadn't considered when I decided to do it this way. And the problem that I ran into is on this build, I am using inset cabinet doors. The way an inset cabinet door is designed is it sits flush with the outside instead of overlaying on top of your face frames like a normal overlay cabinet door would. So, but what I didn't realize is that when these hinges open up, the door doesn't swing out of the way. In fact, it swings more into the way. So if you're trying to put this in a place where you have a drawer coming out, it's definitely not going to work. So I got all the way to the point where I had the door mounted with the hinges and was putting it in here and had it all mounted up, and then I realized that these drawers weren't going to open. Didn't work at all. So we had to build this as a drawer front. So I had to reinforce that so that this tall drawer front wouldn't reef on that drawer and break it. So I did have a couple of swing away 170-degree door hinges. I tried to put those on here, but the hardware sticks out about 1.5 inches, and when you're opening the door it comes out a little farther than that and then swings away and takes up a little less space. But that 1.5 inch penetration into the cabinet, I only have 1 inch of clearance from this toilet to the side of the cabinet, so that wasn't going to work either. So this toilet is a tight fit here, but it does work. And what I did is I set this up so that it just bolts right down to the bottom of the drawer. I can find them. There they are. I got a vent from Nature's Head vent fan and housing, and just drilled a hole and attached that to the side of the boon john, and then this goes on there and the vent just pushes right onto that. I really like this Nature's Head fan housing because it's small and compact, and it has 12 volts wired right up to a connector. So when I ordered that, I also ordered the 12 volt lead that I just connect up to my system, and it works beautifully. One thing we really like about this Sea-Head toilet is it's really easy to change the solids bucket. You just pull it out there, lift it out, dump it into a bag or put it in a dumpster or go put it out in the compost bin, whatever you need to do. This is designed to just use 1 gallon jugs for the liquids, and they just sit in there like that. There's enough room next to this toilet that I can put a spare jug right over there on the side, spare toilet paper, and I have a toilet paper mount right there. The crank for the toilet that keeps things covered fits right in there. We are styling. Do your business. Put the lid on. Close it up. Show you some details on the bed. The first thing I decided about this bed is that I wanted it to be 34 inches high off of the floor, and the reason for that is because in Clarity 1 we had it 32 inches off the ground, and it was enough for there to be a drawer in there with the bikes on it, but I wanted just a little bit extra room so I can put my Max Tracks under here and things like that. And I knew we had a little more height on the van, so I went with 34 inches. So when I built the systems, the electrical system and the water system, I built the panels that they mounted to be exactly 34 inches high. And that way I knew what I was going to do is take a piece of 1x4 oak, because it's good and strong, and I was going to rest that right on the top of those panels. So those panels are exactly 56 inches wide, which is the outside of the bed frame is also 56 inches wide, so I have 54.5 inches in between where the slats go. So I just rested these 1x4s right on top of that, and I have a little piece screwed into here that this mounts to that keeps this rail solid. And on the other side, that other rail is loose right now, other than being tied together by the slats. But when my galley is in here, they will also attach to this and give it rigidity. So on this side, because it's going to be supported from a cabinet with a cabinet here and my galley cabinet on the other side, I only had about a 2-foot span on this side. So I just put a piece of 16th inch angle aluminum on the inside of these and spaced it so that it's the same height, 3/4 of an inch, off of the bottom of this 1x4, so that it matches up with the level of the unistrut. I put this 16th inch angle aluminum on this side, and I used an 1/8 inch angle aluminum on the other side because that side has to span the entire length. So even though I totally trust the strength of this 1x4 for the two of us, I did add that 1/8 inch angle aluminum over there to give it a little extra strength. And then they're all tied together with these slats, and I just used T-nuts on the top of these slats and screwed up through the aluminum into those T-nuts to anchor these together. And this is bomber. Underneath here, underneath this slat, I have a piece of 3/4 inch poplar that I screwed down to the top of the panel, the systems panel, that goes in between these. So these are all of these unistruts are bound together side to side in between those, and then they're also screwed together on both sides and screwed together in the middle. So these slats are 2 inches wide, and I intentionally made them 2 inches wide because I didn't want to go wider than 2 inches on the spacing in between them. But having them basically 2 inches wide with a 2-inch space means that the weight of this, being 1/2 inch slats, is the same as it would be if I just sheeted the whole thing with a piece of 1/4 inch plywood, but it's going to be stronger. The other thing I did is I screwed down this center unistrut to these slats by drilling down with a tap drill, and so it self drills and taps a hole at the same time, and then I use 1/4-20 bolts to attach it. I also ran some screws with washers up into these from the bottom. So this thing right now, it makes a little bit of noise, but when this is on here, it's really quiet and solid. Riding down the road, we don't even notice anything. And you might be wondering why we didn't put flares on this. We've got this bed only 54 inches wide by 71 inches. And for us, that's literally only 4 inches shorter than a full-size bed, which we had in Clarity 1, and that was plenty of room for us. We're both 5'7", so it works for us. We decided to save the $1,200 that it would have cost us. I remember that's what it was, to get those flares, not including paint. So it would have been over $2,000 to have those, to buy those flares, and then we still would have had to install them. Plus, Kristina really likes the look of them without the flares. So there is no doubt in my mind about how strong this bed is. It doesn't budge. It's so strong. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and those of you who wanted a little more detail, I hope you got something out of this. And stay tuned, because coming up, we have a trip scheduled to see the eclipse, and I want to have this van done by then. So that gives me about 6 weeks, 5 weeks to get it done. So I'm feeling pressured. So join us if you're interested in seeing how it progresses, and we'll see you down the road.